For centuries we've been told that governments are the highest authority. They represent us, make the laws, and manage society for the common good. But what if I told you there's a quieter, more powerful force shaping our world? A force that doesn't need to win elections or appear on campaign posters to get what it wants. That force is money, and its control over governments is one of the most significant, yet least understood, stories of our time. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's the story of a practical arrangement that began out of necessity. Governments have always needed money to build roads, fund armies, and provide services. In the beginning, rulers controlled wealth directly. But as economies grew, wealth started accumulating in the hands of merchants and bankers. This split between political power and financial power created a new dynamic. Governments started depending on private capital to fund their ambitions. A major turning point was the invention of public debt. Initially, it was a tool for short-term needs, like financing a war. But soon, it became a permanent feature of how governments operate. States weren't just borrowing occasionally. They were borrowing constantly, rolling over old debt and taking on new loans. This is how financial markets became embedded in the very core of government. Once governments became regular borrowers, they became clients. And like any client, their behavior started to change to please the lender. Suddenly, getting a loan wasn't just about being in charge, it was about having credibility and market confidence. And who do you think gets to define those terms? Not voters, but the financial institutions providing the money. No banker had to openly threaten a prime minister. The control was built into the system itself. Interest rates, credit ratings, and investor sentiment became the quiet judges of government policy. They rewarded certain decisions with lower borrowing costs and punished others with financial instability. Governments quickly learned that policies friendly to financial markets made life easier. Policies that challenged powerful financial interests, however, often led to capital flight or a currency crisis, which was then blamed on political incompetence, not the system itself. Then came globalization. Capital became incredibly mobile, able to cross borders with a single click. Governments, however, remained tied to their land and their people. This created a huge power imbalance. The mere threat of money leaving the country could shape policy debates before they even started. It encouraged lawmakers to prioritize deregulation and budget cuts, framing them as responsible governance, even if it meant sacrificing social programs. To manage this complex system, central banks were created. They were designed to be independent of political pressure to ensure economic stability. But this independence also meant that crucial economic decisions were moved out of the democratic arena and into the hands of technocrats. Their main job is to control inflation and keep the financial system healthy, not necessarily to focus on broader social goals like reducing inequality. While independence can be a good thing, it also reinforces a system where financial stability is often prioritized above all else. The economy itself also changed. More and more profits started coming not from making things, but from financial activities like trading and speculation. This is called financialization, and it amplified the influence of big financial institutions even more. Governments, struggling with slower growth and rising costs, became even more dependent on these financial markets to keep the economy afloat. It's a cycle. Policy is shaped by the need to keep markets happy, which in turn gives those markets even more power to shape future policy. Sure, we see lobbying and campaign donations, and that's the visible part of money's influence. But the real control is much deeper. It's the structural dependency that narrows the range of what is considered a realistic policy option before a single vote is even cast. Most politicians don't act in the interest of financial markets because they're corrupt. They do it because the system is designed to make any other choice seem reckless or impossible. You see this most clearly during a crisis. When major banks are too big to fail, they're often bailed out with public money. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens are told to tighten their belts with austerity measures to restore balance. It's presented as an unfortunate necessity, not a political choice. This shows just how deeply financial stability has become equated with the well-being of society itself. International organizations like the IMF and World Bank add another layer. When they provide loans, they often attach conditions that require countries to adopt market-friendly reforms. This is another way financial pressure reshapes a country's governance from the outside. For developing nations, this influence is even stronger, as access to international capital is essential for their survival, limiting their ability to forge their own economic path. This entire system creates a powerful feedback loop. Policies that favor financial interests lead to greater financial influence, which then shapes future policies even more strongly. The result isn't a world where banks have replaced governments. It's a world where political authority operates within invisible boundaries set by financial realities that are rarely questioned. This quiet control works because it doesn't need to be loud. It operates through expectations and incentives that feel natural, making political decisions seem technical and neutral, rather than ideological and debatable. This also changes how we define success. Economic growth and market confidence become the main report card for a government, while things like equality and public well-being are treated as secondary concerns that have to fit within the budget. The very language of politics has shifted. we hear endlessly about fiscal discipline and structural reform. These terms frame economic decisions as unavoidable requirements, not value-based choices. Over time, this trains us all, politicians and citizens alike, to see economic constraints as laws of nature, not as human-made systems that can be changed. The media often reinforces this, with stock market updates treated as a vital sign of the nation's health. While the long-term social costs of policy get far less airtime, modern technology has made this influence even stronger. Algorithmic trading and real-time data flows mean markets react instantly. This puts immense pressure on governments to conform quickly to financial expectations, because any hesitation or uncertainty is punished. This doesn't mean governments are powerless, but it does mean that real change often requires countries to work together. Acting alone is risky, but collective action can shift the balance of power. The problem is, the current system encourages competition between nations, not collaboration. This whole dynamic can be frustrating. It can feel like our democratic institutions are hollowed out, with real power lying somewhere beyond our reach. But it's crucial to understand that systems built by human decisions can be reshaped by human decisions. Recognizing how money quietly took control is not about blaming individuals. It's about seeing the cumulative effect of choices made over decades, choices that prioritized efficiency and stability without fully accounting for the power dynamics they created. By making these hidden structures visible, we can start a real debate about whether this balance of power truly serves the public interest. Until then, money will continue to guide our governments, not with open commands, but through the silent, invisible pressures of dependence. It shapes our world long before we ever get a chance to vote. This system doesn't need to rule openly, because its influence is woven so deeply into the fabric of modern governance that it's rarely noticed at all. Thanks for watching. If this video made you think, consider subscribing for more content that dives deep into the systems that shape our world.